Welcome to Whitetail 46. Brought to you by Monster Meal Wildlife Feed and Attractants. Animal attraction, premium nutrition, superior results.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Whitetail 46, the stories of American deer hunting. We're going to go back in time today with this episode to an interview I did with Ben Stern. Ben is a primary at Tactacam. They're a POV camera that was specifically designed to hunt with, and he is going to talk about a lot of different things, about the family attachment that he has with hunting, how it was a family member that spurred him to chase his dream to develop a product specifically for the hunting industry. It's a great one, and if you like Wisconsin whitetails, it kind of introduces us to Bruno Stern, the caretaker of the Melrose Monster. Thanks for tuning in to Whitetail 46, brought to you by Monster Meal Wildlife Feed and Attractants. We're in Melrose, Wisconsin, and we did a first part series with Bruno Stern about the Melrose Monster, and this is a continuation of that. We're here with Ben Stern. Ben is the originator of the Tactacam POV camera. It's kind of the ideal outdoor hunting camera. That's kind of where you made your signature mark. It can be used for a lot of different things other than that, but it is unique in that it really came, the idea did not come from an idea for a product. It came from an opportunity that you wanted to share. And if we could just start out with you telling me what you told me about why you developed a POV camera, and what you were trying to accomplish with it.
Sure. Well, I guess to start with, I went to school for photography and videography, and I was, doing that whole thing and teaching, and I was doing a couple different projects, working on some cameras and building some cameras. But, I was out hunting, and my grandpa told me, he's like, you go back here into this spot, and you're going to see a big deer. Like, you go back there and check that out and let me know, So I went back there and I saw one, and I'm like, Grandpa, you should have seen how big that buck was. Like, you'll never believe it. And he's like, do you got a picture? I'm like, well, no. He's like, you do all this video stuff and you don't have a video or a photo. So, of course, I go back the next day and I've got, a camera with me, and I'm filming, and I'm like, geez, this does not work very well. And it was not one that I built. It was just one I bought off the shelf. So I was like, okay, what do I need to do, to make this work? So that was really the first Tactacam. It wasn't Tactacam yet, but it was the first camera that I had put together. It was on a circuit board with a lens, and it was literally saran wrapped together, and I strapped it to the stabilizer and started shooting videos. And then I could show, I showed Grandpa, like, check this out, Grandpa. Like, you're right. That is a monster. So that was kind of how it started. And then I started showing videos to people, and, one thing leads to the next. And next thing you know, we've got Tactacam. And I guess if you haven't heard of Tactacam, you should definitely check it out. But
yeah, it's now, how old was your granddad at this point?
How old was Grandpa, Dad?
Well, he died when he was 93, and he was probably around 90 around.
He's 90 years old, and I mean, we hunted every season. Like, it was to the point where obviously we were sitting in the truck, and I would take him and Grandma, and we would, go sit up on top of the hill, and we'd sit in the truck, and he couldn't see anything, but he didn't care if he couldn't see anything. I'd tell him what I'd see. So
Tactacam was really spawned from a desire to continue to share the experiences that you knew were very important with your grandfather.
Yeah.
With your grandfather.
Exactly.
And from that, I'm telling you, no one is ever going to accuse me of being a Bill Gates. I mean, I'm not a very technologically savvy guy. I utilize technology as a tool. I have the original Tactacam that I got, 3 or 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. I also have a 5.0, and the evolution in that product is spectacular because it's so much easier for someone who is challenged by technology like myself to utilize that camera for a purpose. than even the original Tactacam was. And what I really want people to take away from this is the purpose of this particular podcast is every hunter you meet thinks it would be really, really cool to work in the hunting industry. And I'm not going to lie to people. It's really, really cool to work in the hunting industry. It's got its challenges. But a lot of the stories of modern products are literally just an opportunity where someone sourced manufacturing. They really didn't have a lot developed in it. They're just copying another product or taking a pre-manufactured product and putting it in a new casing. And Tactacam, even though it's a technology product, is not that. It literally started with saran wrap and a lens.
Yeah. And,
so
and it truly was like, how can I make this better? So it's like when you're hunting, what is the thing you want to do when you're hunting, right? You want to hunt. But at the same time, it's like I wanted to be able to record this stuff, so I could show like my grandfather or my wife or my son or my dad or, my friends, so that was where a lot of the ideas came from as far as like, I don't want to turn the camera on. I just want to, if I need to, I'll push a button. But then after that, I want the camera to do everything for me. I want it to turn on. I want it to record. I want it to adjust its exposure. I want it to do everything. Like, I don't want to mess with it. I want to focus on that animal. I want to enjoy the moment. I want to decide if I want to, try to take the animal or maybe try to and scare it away. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't want to worry about trying to run a camera. That's why I think Tactacam took off, was because we were thinking about all of that stuff. When I say we, because it's not just me. Like, there's, when you have a company, it's not just one person. There's a lot of people that make it what it is.
And you said right now Tactacam is about 20 employees?
Mm-hmm.
And, a couple of them one of them is a very close personal friend of mine who actually moved out to Iowa from New York to work with Tactacam.
Yeah.
And he's been around Tactacam a lot longer than I've even really known you guys. And he's how I was originally exposed to Tactacam, kind of first gen. Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's a really small industry and you kind of get to meet most of the people involved in it. And there's a lot of people that are great, great people. And there's a lot of people that you just don't relate to very much. But, one of the fun things that I've had over the last 7 years, I think, is that it always seemed like the people at Tactacam have been in line with, one, they want to be recognized as having the best product for the purpose and a very high quality product. And they've never shifted off of that. Essentially, all the improvements you've made have just made your original technology, kind of your solo technology, I think it is now, even more accessible for the average guy that wants to try it. And when I started hunting, if you wanted to video a hunt, you were dragging a 35-pound camera out in the woods, tons of batteries. You had to have a special camera arm. You had to have a second guy. And these, literally, you can set them up. I'm never going to try this because I'm just not that guy, but I realized the potential in that with a few small cameras and a few couple mounts, the video quality is outstanding in that 5.0. It's amazing to me compared to the original camera they had, the difference in that. But you can film multiple angles at the same time, all controlled by yourself from a smartphone. Plus, you can have the unit that's on your weapon. So that's a unique. Before that, you'd have to have multiple cameramen, 15 years ago. So it really, in this little cigar, what is it, 4.5 inches long, maybe?
Yeah, that's small.
It's an amazing amount of technology. But honestly, when you and I started talking yesterday, Ben and I have known each other for a long time, but we've never spent a lot of time together. And I love it when we see these American stories where an idea was spawned out of a purpose that you probably weren't thinking that, hey, I can make this thing a big thing and leave my teaching job and everything else. Right. But that's exactly what you did. And we were talking with Bruno about the beauty of America is it can happen here, and it happens here with phenomenal regularity. And for someone to be able to transition into doing what they absolutely love to do, which is hunting and fishing and things like that, and develop a product that gets used there, and you're really you're one of the people that's really identified with Tactacam, and it all started with kind of, you were the first seed. I also really like the fact that you understood very early that it wasn't, you were going to have to take some risk, and you were going to have to bring in people with different skill sets, and you've done that. You know, I know Jeff Peel well. I've never met Ben Thrud. I know Dave Mathis very well. And the people that you have around you are very, very good people, and the products you make are exceptional. And you know, so that begs the question: what has it meant to you to create a product that's allowed you to kind of go away from the cookie cutter? I grew up, I got educated, I went to school, I took a job, you know, did my 40 years and retired, kind of the cookie cutter pathway that people our age were always taught. This is how you become a success. What has it meant for you to be able to transition into the hunting industry, which is kind of where your passion lies, as far as a recreation? You know, it's still a hobby for us. People forget that, you know, even if we sell products that are hunting related, I don't get paid a dime. I still have to take my vacation time if I want to climb a tree, you know.
Right.
Yes, you do get some advantages in, you know, it's expected. No one really gives you any grief because when you sell a hunting product, they expect that you're going to go hunting. But it's not like they give you 3 weeks extra vacation or anything like that either. So you know, it's still a hobby for you. You don't make money because you're out actually climbing a tree. You make money because you run the business. But what's it meant to you to be able to make that transition? And most importantly, what would you say to anyone who really wanted to develop, thinks they have a product that they can develop that has some application in the hunting industry?
Right. Yeah, I guess number one, I'm very honored and fortunate to, you know, be in a place where I'm at now, and you know, it's been a heck of a ride, and I'm not planning on stopping. So I'm sure there's quite a few people that are listening right now that I've probably talked to on the phone and or have had a question, and I call them up and they have no idea who I am, and you know, then all of a sudden they call me back and they're like, "You're Ben Stern, the guy that started Tactacam, right?" I'm like, yeah, that's me, you know. But I mean, every one of us, like, there's nobody that doesn't work at Tactacam that doesn't have the same passion. You know, like, we care very, very much about our product. You know, it's like we build them for ourselves. We truly build them for ourselves. Like, we don't make anything that we don't want. And everything that we build is because it's not available, or there's stuff we just can't stand, and it drives us crazy. So it's like the reveal camera that we just built. There's just so many things that were frustrating about cellular trail cameras that it drove us nuts. And it was like, Jeff and I are sitting there talking, we're like, let's just build some cameras and we'll just use them. And then next thing you know, it was like we had orders for them, and next thing you know, we're like, we can't keep them in stock. But we built them for ourselves. We didn't build them for anything else, truly, you know. But as far as you know, just being in this spot and transitioning, you know, if you have an idea, I've always been the type of person that I just go for it. Like, yeah, you're gonna fail potentially, and I've failed at other things, you know, but it's not like you know, it teaches you stuff. You know, you have to be willing to take some risk. I've been talking to a lot of people that have great ideas and they want to know how do they get started. And I tell them all the same thing. It's like the hardest part is you know, sometimes pulling a trigger, right? Is that buck big enough? I don't know. But you'll never know until you pull the trigger. You know, when it's laying on the ground, it might be, wow, that was the coolest thing ever. Or, man, that was not the one I thought it was. Either way, you pulled the trigger, right?
Right.
So, you know, for example, I don't want to say any names or ideas of products, but there's a guy right now, and you know, he's got a great idea, but financially sometimes it's hard, or but if you have a job and you're making some money, you don't have to risk everything. Go to a trade show. Tara Peel and I stood at a trade show in Madison, Wisconsin, after Jeff and I got together. It was actually before Jeff and I were technically together as far as partners go for Tactacam, and Tara and I stood there, and when the first day we sold every single camera we had, and we're like, Jeff, we need some more cameras. Do you think you could swing by and grab some more and bring them to Madison? And when Jeff tells the story, he'll say it was that right then is when I knew, like, okay, this hobby that him and Tara wanted to get into with me, and like just do something for fun, wasn't gonna be a hobby. Like, this is gonna be something really cool. And I don't know, I think it is pretty cool, and I think we're doing something really awesome. And yes, it's for ourselves, but we care about every single customer, which is why today I'm sitting on my computer reading messages and calling customers, and Jeff's doing the same thing, and Tara, and every single person I'm getting text messages from our customer service people that aren't even working today, that are asking me questions because they see stuff. But we're very passionate, and I think if you're a very passionate person, you're probably going to succeed, because that's what it takes, I think.
Yeah, there's a 4-H based mentality that you never fail. You either win or learn. And I try to teach my kids that all the time. And listen, you're gonna. The one thing I think we struggle with is teaching our kids that failure's okay, because we learn from failure, and when you learn, you don't truly fail at anything. I mean, there's very few things that you're gonna fail at in life. You may not be good at things. I always joke that my friends from high school used to joke with me that I would be a pretty good basketball player if I could dribble and shoot. And if you follow basketball, dribbling and shooting are probably two of the most important things. And I was never going to be a basketball player. But I would engage when I could, because it wasn't about, I didn't have to be the best. It was part of the process of learning to work as a team and things like that. You gain so much by engagement. The other thing that really struck me is that the propensity to want to develop a quality product because it's yours. A lot of the products we see in the outdoor industry are built with a financial model in mind, in that we're going to build what we can for the least possible cost and the highest possible margin. And those products never seem to sustain, and they never create a brand name. And as a brand manager, I don't want to try to brand a widget. I don't want to flash in the pan success, because it brings into question the integrity of the person promoting the brand. Mm-hmm. And as a manufacturer and owner, the same thing. So why I wanted to do this podcast, part of it is if you have a dream and you have a solid product, there's risk involved, and you may not feel comfortable with that risk. Listen, we all have wives and kids, and a level of risk taking that we're willing to accept. But don't necessarily discredit your invention or your idea, because I'm sure in the beginning the 5.0 was really not even a concept when you started with your Saran Wrap model. You were probably pretty amazed at your that solo type technology when you finally got it all put together, but it's evolved since then. And then thirdly, you bring up a very important thing, that Reveal trail cameras are a division of Tactacam, separate brand totally, but you went and you took the same problem solving set with trail cameras. Now, it's no big secret to the people that know me that I have a love-hate relationship with trail cameras. I don't like going into areas and pulling cards. I don't like disturbing. You live in Wisconsin. It's a high-pressure deer state. Okay. I live in New York. It's competitive deer hunting at its best. New York, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, 4 states I've hunted, and I have never seen more competition for the resource than in those 4 states. Nowhere. Competition is different in different states. You go to Texas, lease pressure is very, very high. But for the public type resource and the sheer number of hunters, Wisconsin's the same way. So for a lot of times I avoided things. And again, I kind of shy away from technology. We always had this mentality that technology can lessen the experience. It takes away, it gives advantages to people who haven't put in their sweat equity, the kind of whole, working class hero mentality that is not entirely accurate, by the way. I respect people that work very hard for what they do and achieve whatever level of success that they do have with whatever resources they have. But this camera really is way different. I think I set my first 3 up in about 15 minutes and could check everything on them the very next morning. I had a picture within, I think, 17 minutes of when I set my first camera out and left. I had a picture on it. Now it's just a squirrel, but it picked it up. And when I started looking through and feeding through the app, you literally can control them from your phone. Okay. So when I look at that, that's amazing to me because I remember, Bruno probably remembers the little timers that you stretched a string across the trail and you checked what time the string was broken when you did it. That was a trail timer to me. And I remember people saying, well, that's not even fair because you're not out there competing with the animal. Now I'm getting cellular pictures from Kentucky in Wisconsin.
Right.
And I've had people say to me, well, it's not really that fair. I'm like, well, how's it really unfair? Because the deer are in Kentucky. It's information. Sometimes too much information can be a big thing. But let's talk about how a tectard like me says, okay, camera and a camera. 2 very different applications to cameras. Yes or no?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, so, I mean, just the difference between a Tactacam, like, for hunting and filming, like, your experience, the reveal, is the concept's very simple. It's like, how easy can we build the camera to work? What type of quality can we build into the camera? So when you get the images, number one, I'm just tired of seeing, like, crappy images. I want to see really good images. So, it's like, how do we do that? How do we make it affordable? So like this camera is $130. Most like Cabela's and Bass Pro and Shields, a lot of them are all selling them for like $99 because that was the, their sale price. And it's like, but for a really high-end quality cell camera, and I know there's other cheaper ones on the market, but if you tried them, you would understand the difference.
Not very capable.
We tried to build this camera to be a $350 camera, but sell it at a price point that allowed people, the opportunity to experience this because, like, I think it's fun. Like, I don't get to go hunting every day, but with cameras out, I get to go hunting every day, like at lunch or on a break or when I wake up or go to bed. I can pull my phone out and I can look at the pictures that are happening, and it makes me feel like I'm in the woods, like it gives me something to look forward to. And I don't know how many people have tried this, but it's very addicting. Like you'll find yourself looking at the camera like, why am I not getting any photos? Oh wait, I looked at it 5 minutes ago. That's why. But it is very addicting, and it's just really fun, and it's a stress relief, and then when you do actually get to go out, I mean, hey, you're hunting then, but at least you know what's around, and it kind of puts you there when you're not there.
Yeah, I talked to your father a little while ago about the Melrose Monster and the status of legendary bucks in deer hunting, and this really brings some reality to the Melrose Monster in that if you have a picture of the actual deer you're going to hunt, you have a little bit of history to it, it actually ties you more to that deer personally. Mm-hmm. Now, the antithesis is everybody has a Melrose Monster. We talked about that, where every hunter goes out there you may live in central New York where I live, and the overall quality of buck where I live is nothing like we have here in Wisconsin, Iowa, across the river, in Illinois, Indiana, southern Minnesota. So what I consider to be a giant buck, and what I considered it growing up, is far different than what you've done and seen. But we can all relate to that giant that nobody's gotten yet.
Oh, for sure.
And it really adds some reality. You take it from fiction to nonfiction when you start to see these things. The other thing is, as a manufacturer of a feed product, no one wants to sit in a deer blind in May and watch deer walk up and check times and do everything like that. And different times require different camera settings, things like that. And this camera is so easy to set up that this is going to be a diagnostic and testing tool for me. But it can work for a hunter who wants to, one, who's accessing my property when I'm not there? Number two, let's start boxing our photos to, in the spring, what are the deer really eating on my property? Mm-hmm. Which cameras are the most active? In the fall, I have one guy who put out a cell camera last year just to see when the acorns started to drop on these 4 trees, because he's paranoid to go in there. And he doesn't have a lot of time. So he always seemed to miss this 4 or 5 day window of when they were there. He says, I put my cell cam out and everything like that. But like you said, I think those cell cameras that he bought were $265 a piece. That's a $500+ bill, and then you still haven't gotten the ability to transmit a picture. Mm-hmm. So, and cell service is a little sketchy. I have one bar of cell service where I put 5 cameras in Kentucky, and I have all 5 cameras operating. All 5 cameras have been transmitting pictures to my phone. It was just as simple as checking the test photo, make sure it's pointing in the right direction, make sure the camera settings are there, and make sure you turn the camera on, because that's the probably the biggest mistake I've ever made, was go out and set them all up in setup mode and then never turn them on. But it is so easy, and don't get hung up like I did in what an advantage this is. Why are you letting people have access to where the deer are literally in live time? Because the reality is most of us aren't going to just pick up from our desk and say, hey boss, I got a buck out by my food plot, I'm going to go. We might be able to do that occasionally, but it's really not. And coming full circle, the story of Tactacam, it was really refreshing for me to meet you in person. We've had conversations on the phone, texts, everything, because of mutual marketing contacts, things like that. But to hear the story about Tactacam, and then meet your dad and see how it all tied into the history and the culture that is American deer hunting, because that's what Whitetail 46 is about. It's not about who killed the giant buck in Illinois last year. I mean, we may have that. We may have some people talking about exceptional deer. I'll guarantee you they're not going to be industry insiders who kill a 200+ inch whitetail. It'll be some, Ned Farkle guy just, drives an oil truck and killed a giant deer.
Yeah.
We'll try to get those. But seeing the products, hearing the way that they were developed, hearing the passion where, listen, my grandfather challenged me. John Moses Browning, probably the most prolific gun designer ever, quoted multiple times about saying, complaining about the firearms that he had to work on as a blacksmith. And then his father, he said, I could just build something so much better. And his father challenged him and said, then why don't you do it? And that started, that one little prompt from a father or grandfather, took an idea into the most prolific firearm designer in history. And that one little prompt of, why don't you have any pictures of this deer from your granddad, is kind of along that same line. And folks, don't be afraid, don't be intimidated. One, don't think that all the people that make a living in the outdoor industry are some sort of superpower celebrities, because most of us are not. We're just regular guys that got a little bit lucky, and either worked with or developed products that have a general use. And there's a lot of people that make products that have limited functionality, and there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of ideas are not commercially successful for a lot of different reasons, and it's a lot of times not because the idea is bad. It's because there's a hiccup in the step. But Tactacam has been a very interesting kind of storyline for me. You know, we're going to continue to work together. We have a little bit of fun together. We shot some videos today, and we're going to continue to tell the stories of American deer hunters and American deer hunting here at Whitetail 46. Thanks for joining us. Ben Stern, Bruno Stern, Brian Smith, thanks for being here. Thanks for putting this all together for me. Have a great evening.
To get the full Whitetail 46 experience with videos, blogs, and more, go to whitetail46.com. Follow our podcast by subscribing to Sportsman's Nation on your favorite app store.